All right, so I think it looks like the participant rate has kind of leveled off. Um, so I want to jump right into it. And we'll start off with PowerPoint and bouncing back and forth a little bit. Want to share some information starting at the very beginning. Wanted this to be a more basic webinar talking about the basics of phone scoping for those that may have never even heard about it, what it is and what you can do with it. Phone scoping, as you might guess, is simply a matter of coupling a phone, by use of an adapter to a binocular, or as the case may be in scoping, more likely a spotting scope, like so. Got the spotting scope, put it on there, and what it allows you to do, it gives massive magnification. You're utilizing the massive magnification of the spotting scope to get unparalleled focal lengths that you just don't get with normal systems. So I'm going to go to this PowerPoint here, and I'm going to share this with everybody, if I may. And we'll start this up. And again, we'll do a little bit of PowerPoint so that we can explain a bit of what's going on here. But then we're going to go to Q&A after about 35 minutes or so and answer all of your questions, hopefully, that we didn't get in the PowerPoint. So graphically, as we pointed out before, one of the things that we want to talk about are the components. Typically in a phone scoping kit, you've got your scope, as you see here, with the 880 series spotting scope. You've got an eyepiece, in this case, the 25 to 60x wide angle zoom. And then you have your phone either held behind or preferably with some sort of an adapter. And Kira will probably touch on that a little bit later on as to why you want an adapter. But in essence, it's very difficult to handhold your phone back there and get any sort of decent images without an adapter. And the adapters are small, lightweight, flyaway if you get the proper one. So it's not that big of a difference. And it really makes a huge difference in the quality of the imagery that you're able to get. This I did not think about, that our screen over here might cover some of that up. At any rate, so let's talk a little bit about the magnification in the math, if we will. Whoops, sorry, go back. So why is it such a big, enormous magnification, and what is it equal to, is one of the common questions we get. So we know that a spotting scope, as an example, has massive magnification. At 60 power of magnification, it's up to 800% more magnification than a 8 power binocular, almost. So scopes are where you really get into a big difference, rather than ditchy binning and just using your binoculars. But what we do is, a standard phone like an iPhone has the rear-facing camera. Usually it's just one camera. It's designed to offer wide angle scenics as well as some portraiture at close range. And they're generally about a 28 millimeter on the rear lens. So if you figure the eyepiece maximum magnification is at 60 power, if we have that 28 millimeter lens mounted to the eyepiece at full magnification, it gives the equivalent of a 1680 millimeter focal length. So, that's about 400% more than most wildlife lens systems, which utilize a 400 millimeter lens, as an example. I've had some questions about how about the inexpensive stuff. And what I will say to that is, Kowa has full lines of spotting scopes starting at $350 going up to $3150. And the same thing with throughout doesn't have to just be Kowa, but I mean, generally speaking, in any phone scoping system, the quality of the imagery that you get is only going to be as good as the weakest link in your system, be it your spotting scope and the glass in that. If you have the lowest end, least expensive quality scope, you still absolutely can phone scope, but you have to be realistic with the expectations of what that lens is going to allow you to do as far as quality. Similarly, if you have an ineffective adapter that's not very stable, that's going to limit the end quality of your imagery. If you have an unstable tripod that shakes a lot and vibrates, that's going to affect your system. So all these things, are going to limit how effective your system is overall. Our best performing spotting scopes, which I've got here, are 880s, 770 series, and the 550 series that utilize our pure fluoride glass, of course, are our best performers, but also the most expensive. We do have a good special in the US and Canada right now, at least, on the 770s through mid-June, but they're going to perform better because they have that fluoride lens crystal in there. But again, the 880, which is our pinnacle product, is going to be a lot more expensive. We also have our Highlander. We call it large observation binocular, but it's sort of a hybrid, really, almost more like two spotting scopes with twin barrels because they're 88 millimeter, 82 millimeter barrels. And then you've got interchangeable eyepieces with high magnification of up to 50 power, depending on which eyepiece you use. So, and again, like our 88 and our 55 millimeter, they utilize the pure fluoride glass crystal. One thing I didn't mention before is that the Audubon Society, in their last roundup, not surprisingly to us, chose the 880 series as the best performing spotting scope overall in the entire industry. Everyone was in there. I won't, mention names, but pretty much everyone you expect to be there was there. And our 550, which was our smaller compact one, which is somewhat cut off over here, is the highest performing product in the compact scopes as well. So first in both of those. At any rate, that's about as much of the commercial that I'm going to do on the Kowa product, so much as just now we're going to get into straight how do you digiscope and the components of a digiscoping system. And to start off, I want to tell you what I'm shooting with primarily. I use the 883, being the angled version of our 880 series, the 88 millimeter objective lens with the 25 to 60 wide angle eyepiece, the TE11WZ. I have an iPhone 11 Pro Max, and I utilize the phone scope adapter for that in particular. And now Kowa, of course, makes our own branded phone scoping adapters, which work really well. So why am I using the phone scope? Well, I'm going to tell you why in 1 second. You can see this. Here's one of the Kowa adapters. We make adapters for the most common phones only, for the Samsung series and the iPhone series. However, these, as effective as they are, we do not accommodate more than just the single lens. So even on these more modern phones with multiple lenses, you can't take advantage of that 2x lens, which is a really great tool for digiscoping. On the phone scope adapter, which Kira will talk about, you do have the ability to utilize the multiple lenses. If I go back for 1 second, well, actually, I'll come back to that afterwards. Kira, you want to talk a little bit about, I'm going to throw it over to Kira from Phone Scope, Kira Nielsen, to discuss specifics on the Phone Scope products.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everyone. I'm Kiera. I work for Phone Scope, do a lot of different things for them. But yeah, I'm just here to kind of go over our different cases. So this is for iPhone 8 Plus. And as Jeff mentioned, ours works with all of the lenses. We try and incorporate that. With the new iPhone 11 Max Pro, they have the 3 lenses. The one is very wide angle and isn't great for digiscoping. So with that one, we do only roll over the 2 lenses. So a lot of people ask that question. So that's why it's just not super effective. But Jeff's phone's a little different than mine. His is fancier, which is awesome. Someday I will be cool enough to have a phone like his. But mine, I'll show you how it works. So I just literally just clicked my phone right into it and it's ready to go. That's the ease of the phone scope digiscoping system. It really is, I call it snap and go. But you just go, and right now I can move this disc back and forth so it actually slides off. And this is what hooks to the eyepiece adapter that will line it up with my optic. But right now we'll just slide it into place. So I've got, you can see those 2 different lenses, and I can choose whether I want the regular lens or that 2x lens. And then I just drop it in and it snaps and we're good to go. We cover, Jeff mentioned that one thing that they struggle with a little bit is covering all of the phones. We understand that struggle. It's a lot to cover. So we've got every major phone company represented in ours. We've got the Samsung, obviously, iPhone are most popular, but we cover a lot of different things, Motorola and things. But if for some reason you still want to be able to use both lenses, you still want to be able to, you have a very unique phone, we do have universal options. And I'll just show this really quick. It just grabs, as you can see there, we just slide our phone in and it grabs, and then you would have to adjust that over which lens you wanted to use. Not quite as slick, but it's still a great option.
All right. Yeah, that's, it's really good that they've got literally everything covered. I will say that wherever possible, I would use the universal as a backup only, as sort of your last option. These universal adapters, even the best made ones, one of the issues with them is by virtue of just what they are, they have so much moving components and so much ability to adjust the phone in different positions. The problem is the repeatability. And invariably, you've got it set up, you go, you put it back on as a universal, and it's not centered anymore. So the beauty of a system like this, that's mated specifically to this phone on whatever specific eyepiece, there's no variability, and we've eliminated that extra motion so that the repeatability is there. When I put it on the eyepiece, it's going to be centered. We know that. And it limits the coupling errors, which there's enough of those even when everything else is perfect. And we're going to talk about all those now. I'm going to go back to the slideshow. Kiera, thank you, and we'll come back to her. We'll bounce this back and forth a little bit. If I may, there it is. Okay, so we left off right here talking about my rig, and as Kiera had mentioned before, oops, no, that's not going to work. All right, hold on. Technical difficulties. Stop share. Sorry, I'm going to have to reshare that to get it going again. And right this slide here. From current slide. Okay, let's take 2. All right, so we left off here. And as Kiera had mentioned, the iPhone 11 Pro Max has those 3 lenses, and I've got them labeled. You can see the top 2 that are lined up on the left side of the screen. The top one is our 28 millimeter, sort of the 1X lens, as they refer to it, and the standard default lens that is on most iPhones. That 2X, which is below it, again in line on the lower left, is the 56 millimeter. And the beauty of that, using that 2X lens, is when I mount the iPhone with the phone scope adapter on the 2X lens, I mount it behind the spotting scope eyepiece at 56 millimeter. I have 0 vignetting, and it doesn't matter if I'm at 25 power or 60 power. On the eyepiece, I have a full frame image with no dark edging anywhere. So it gives me more magnification, and especially when I've got the eyepiece down at 25 power magnification, it's allowing the largest circle of light to enter the phone, so I still have a faster shutter speed, but I have the advantage of more magnification. And that's the big advantage, and that's why I choose to use the phone scope, even though we have Kowa branded adapters on these when you have a multiple lens phone. If you just have a single lens, the Kowa adapters, of course, are perfect, but there is a big advantage to being able to utilize that 56 millimeters. And you can see the math on the lower part of the iPhone that I've written there at 56 millimeter at 60x. Now we're talking about a 3,360 millimeter lens equivalent, which again is sick. If you really want to get crazy, we can do one other thing. We do have a 1.6x extender, which mounts between the eyepiece and the body, and then it jumps the maximum magnification up to 90 power magnification. Now, this is just theoretical. You know, that gets us up over a 5,000 millimeter lens equivalent, which is crazy. And it's going to be very, very critical to use. You know, the shaking is going to be really ridiculous when you get to really high power like that. But theoretically, you can do it. Now, most people think with that much magnification, we're just talking about shooting distant objects, and very often you are. You know, I mean, the moon is an example. This is taken with my phone here recently. Is almost 240,000 miles away from the Earth here, so that's pretty distant. But you can just as easily utilize the power of magnification on insects, which is covered up again, lower right. A little bit, sorry about that, but or a bird up close, and you can see how much detail you can get on a close bird like this mourning dove. You can see the orbital ring is that blue fleshy ring going around the eye there, and you can make out every wrinkle on that. All the detail on the bill, and even the individual barbs on each feather are showing amazingly. And this is, again, just my iPhone through the 883 spotting scope. So the other thing that's really important with that much magnification, and we talked about the vibration, you're going to want to have a very solid platform. And that's my friend Luis Glace, who's going to join us for the Q&A. You can see his name over there on the left, looking through the Highlander binoculars. And you can see that's locked down heavily on a big, stout carbon fiber tripod with a heavy head. I tend to use a lighter weight tripod than a lot of people because, again, I travel a lot. That's a 4-piece Gitzo tripod that I use that's carbon fiber. You know, there's no perfect system. It's going to vibrate a little bit more than a heavier, bigger tripod, but I can pack it down into my carry-on bag. So, you know, what's perfect for you is going to be very independent, okay? But the one thing that is important that you'll find very useful if you're going to be panning along with birds is to get a video head, what we call a fluid pan head rather than a ball head. A lot of people will use ball head if you're just quadrant scanning with the scope in one spot. It's not as critical, but when you try to move it with a ball head, it will catch and jerk a little bit and you'll lose your subject as you're moving along sometimes. So a fluid pan head or a video head works a lot better, but the legs below it, so long as they're steady and sturdy enough for your purposes, you know, that's the main key there. Now, some of the other things, you'll find that the vibration of literally pushing the shutter release can be problematic. And one of the things that people will do is, you know, take a picture and sometimes stand on the shutter button. So you'll take numerous pictures in a burst mode, and one of those will come out good. Then if you're still finding you're in very low lighting conditions, you're having difficulty stopping the vibration, you can go to your timer on your phone. As we see on the left there, you can see I selected 3 seconds, press it and hope. But that's a gamble because you really don't know. In 3 seconds on a bird is an eternity. It could fly away or move to another branch or do a number of different things could go wrong there, but it is an option. On the iPhones, when you can utilize the volume switch on the sides as an alternate shutter release button, and you can actually use the earbuds with a volume control as a cable release plugged into your iPhone, and then press the volume up and down. But that's not necessarily the easiest thing either, because now you've got a cable running between you and the your phone. But that is another way to do it. One of the best options, and again, I can barely see it here. Sorry about that. I forgot about the fact that our faces were going to be on the right side of the screen here, but is PhoneScope's product here. And I'll stop the share here and bounce it back to Kiera to talk about their Bluetooth remote shutter release, which is inexpensive and a really neat piece of kit that works very well. Let's see here, stop share. Carrie, you want to talk about the shutter release there?
Yeah, for sure. So I've got the Bluetooth shutter button here, and it's quite fancy for people like me. I have a little bit of a shake especially when I get excited about getting good photos. So what Jeff talked about a little bit is it just, you just turn it on, there's a little switch, and then you go in your Bluetooth settings on your phone, and then it just comes up as phone scope and you pair it. And then what it does is it acts as a volume button. So if you're not in a camera app, then when you press the button, it will turn the volume up on your phone, which is great. That means it's working. When you're in the camera app, your phone will recognize that, and then it will use that prompt to take the photo. And I love it because if I push the button and it shakes a little bit, then my photos I struggle to get good ones. And I know a lot of people have that same problem. And there are already so many things against you, the wind and, the ground, people walking around you if you're with a group of people. But that's why I don't go anywhere without my Bluetooth shutter button. It's a lifesaver always if I want good photos.
Yeah, it really works very well. I got to admit, as I mentioned in our last webinar, I think right at the beginning, I kind of let our other more professional digiscopers take over there. I'm a bit of a hack. I'm a bird watcher first and foremost, and I take pictures as an afterthought. But I'm lucky enough that I have good equipment and opportunity, and you put the two together with a little bit of know-how, I wind up getting good pictures despite myself. So that's really fun, and it makes for a good situation. But as a result, I've got one of those things. I invariably tend to leave it at home because I've got my binocular around my neck. I don't think about it. So I make do, but it works extremely well, and I do indeed have one that works. So let's go back to sharing the screen again, and I will. Can you see that? Is that showing now, Kiera?
Yes, sir.
Back on the screen showing again?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Go to the next slide. So I can show you pretty pictures of birds all day long and say, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. But that's not what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take a different approach here as the hack. We've got a lot of professionals. They're going to show you some really pretty photos moving forward as we continue our webinar series and get into the more professional or prosumer type digiscoping. But here's a beautiful shot, just again taken from the hip as I was bird watching of Louisiana, or formerly now tricolored heron, coming into its breeding plumage, and you can see, it's a pretty picture. But again, let's look at the photo fails, as I like to call them, and break those down and learn how to be a little bit of a photo detective instead. So here's a beautiful shot that I took just recently here last week of a Kentucky warbler. And you can see it's a wonderful image. You can barely see the bird back here. It's all blurry in the background. You can make out that it has a black mask and the yellow goes all the way down. And if you use your imagination, you can pretend and say, yeah, you might have taken a picture of a Kentucky warbler. What you can't see really well, you can see just a bit of it. This branch on the right-hand side is perfectly in focus, the leaf over there. And the autofocus had captured that leaf instead of the bird. And when you are shooting with, again, really extreme high magnification, one of the things that we run into is a very shallow depth of focus from front to back. So it's pretty unforgiving if you get sticks and leaves in the way, and we're going to talk about some of the things. Again, apologies that some of this got covered up over here on the right side, but the photo fails, the common photo fails, one of them is motion blur, which we'll talk about. Missed focus, as I call it, is what we're dealing with right here. Then there's glare and reflection, which we'll see, and then a litany of alignment problems and exposure problems as well are some of the real major ones. We're going to discuss all of these kind of in depth here. So one of the things, obviously, just from a fieldcraft standpoint, generally you'll find the subject in your spotting scope, get it in your scope, and tend to start at lower power magnification. At the minimum magnification at 25 power in this case is a lot easier because you've got a wider field of view, so you can see more from side to side. So when you're locating your subject, sometimes it's easier to start with lower power magnification. Then I'll pull out my phone and mount it behind the eyepiece here. We'll talk about why that came up later. I'm not jumping ahead. But then you'll get this vignetted circle because again, in most cases, these wide angle 28mm lenses on the phones see a wider picture than even our wide angle zoom can see. So you get this circular image going around the phone as you see there. Now, to eliminate that circular image, if you want, you can take the mechanical zoom or the optical zoom on the eyepiece, the zoom eye ring, twist that up, and that will fill the frame. As so, sometimes if you still have some darkened corners, you can then tweak the screen and use a little bit of the digital zoom on the phone if you want to get rid of that, or you can leave it there and crop it out later, depending on which eyepiece and which phone you have, which lens you're using. Like I said, with the 56mm, this is what the image is going to look like with me the entire time, and that's one of the reasons I love the dual power phones. Okay, so here's a problem. If you look at this picture of this rare dog toy that I threw up in the tree in the backyard for demonstration here, I think this was supposed to be a camouflage hedgehog. I'm not really sure, but at any rate, you can see nothing in this image is in focus. And when we look at a picture and someone says, well, something I can't, my images are blurry, what's going on? This is one of the things we look at. Is there anything in the subject or in the image that's in focus? When everything's completely out of focus, particularly if you've got a lot behind and in front of your subject, you're pretty certain that this is a motion problem. It's a motion blur problem. And basically you're unable to stop the vibration that we saw in the system. So to handle that, as we talked about before, you know, we mentioned again, you can use the timer, burst mode. You can try and use earbuds, or you know, pick up you know, a Bluetooth remote control for your phone, like the one from PhoneScope, and then be completely hands-free so that you're not shaking the entire system when you literally push the button, which can happen, especially in low light. Another trick, though, if you don't have any of that, you're like me, you've left everything at home. You can actually bring that zoom back down. Go down to the lower power of magnification, and at 25 power, minimum power on the eyepiece, we're getting a larger circle of light entering the phone, remember. And what more light does for you is it increases your shutter speed. And for those that aren't photographers, in a nutshell, that's going to allow you to stop motion more effectively if you've got more light coming into the camera. So that's another little trick. Sometimes you can zoom down and see if that helps. Now, missed focus, as I talked about with that Kentucky warbler picture, is when something in the foreground generally blocks the focus on the image behind. And you can see here again, the stick in the foreground is completely in focus, but my super rare tree hedgehog is out of focus. So in a case like that, and here's again a graphic representation of this, thanks to my wizard friend, Rob Wilton, who did all the graphics for me. Thanks, Rob. We're going to try and do this live, and it just didn't really, you know, we don't have the same controls on the Zoom phone, even though we can physically mount stuff to be able to show you the proper way of what you're going to see. So he came through for me over the week and did this. Thank you, Rob. So you can see here, we've got that fern out in front of the bird that's in focus. And by manipulating the zoom, the fine focus wheel, excuse me, on the spotting scope, which the finger's on up there, we can adjust that back and forth to get the bird in focus rather than that fern that's in the foreground. So you can override the focus. Now, sometimes when you do that, okay, again, there it is, you may have to lock the focal point first. And I'm going to talk to you about how to do that on a phone. Sometimes, especially in low lighting or if you're in video, if you haven't locked a focal point on the phone, what happens is the autofocus will search and you'll go in and out of focus, in and out of focus, in and out of focus consistently. And that's one of the questions we got asked coming into the webinar. How do I stop that? So on the iPhones, at least, you have to figure out how to do it on each of your specific phones, but since it's the most common, the iPhone, what you're going to do is you're going to touch the screen and you're going to hold down on the screen until this icon appears, the AEAF lock up top. What's that is telling you is you've held it long enough that you're now auto exposure and your auto focus have locked in this specific spot. Now, it may be the wrong exposure, it may be the wrong focus, But the good news is once it's locked, you can override both of those. In the case of the focus, again, if it's autofocus, at least if it's locked, it's not going to auto search anymore. Then you can go to the fine focus ring on the front of the Kowa Promonar scopes here and twist that back and forth until you can get your subject completely sharp. And then once that's done, let the vibration stop, take your image. Glare and reflection is something that if you're utilizing, at least if you're utilizing one of the matched adapters from Kowa or the phone scope matched adapters, not the universals, you won't see this because the top of the eyepiece is completely shaded. But what happens if you're using, in particular, you're trying to handhold, or if you're using one of these universal adapters very often, especially with iPhones where the phone is on the corner, light can seep through around the phone and reflect back off the surface of the eyepiece. And that's what we've got going on here with these. You can see that kind of flare spot on the far left, and actually you can see ghosting branches going across the top left of this image as well. That's reflection and glare. So if you take your hand and were to shade that, over top of the eyepiece, or sometimes I used to take off my hat when I was using a universal adapter, put it over the system, that would disappear. But again, it's not a problem if you're using an adapter that's mated specifically for your phone and the eyepiece that you're using, because it's foolproof. It eliminates a lot of these things. So being able to eliminate as many of the potential coupling errors as possible is going to help you a lot in your digiscoping. Another major alignment issue that we can look at here is having your phone at a cant, not being square with the surface of the eyepiece, as you can see here in this well-designed graphic. And when you see that, this is what it will look like on the left on the phone. You'll see that the circle's not centered in the phone, and you have heavy shadowing on one side, and you don't have a full circle. By straightening out that and getting it square and flush onto the eyepiece, all of a sudden you see that is solved, and once again your vignetted circle is centered and that shadowing has disappeared. And then you can run, of course, the zoom up as we talked about before to eliminate the vignette and everything. So here's a couple other issues that you can get. A good adapter will make sure that the lens on your phone is perfectly centered on the lens or the eyepiece of either the binocular or the spotting scope that you're utilizing, but it doesn't automatically adjust the proper distance between the two lenses. Now, just as easily, surely as when you're using a binocular, if I'm wearing glasses, I like to twist these down. Without glasses, I'm going to twist up my eye cups because I need to get the proper distance between the lens in my eye and the lens in the eyepiece. The same is true in digiscoping. And if you get the two lenses too close, here's an example of what it looks like at minimum power. In the far left, you'll get this sort of severely shadowed ring around the outside. When I run the zoom up on the Kowa with them in the same position, some of that will disappear, but it's not a clear edged ring, and you can see these semicircular sort of arc-shaped discoloration in one portion of the screen. And if you're in the woods, that's not as big a problem, but if you have blue sky or blue water, something that's less forgiving, that shadow can actually ruin the picture, because it will be a gradation going across even your subject. So when you see any sort of that shadowing like that, what you have to do now is move the lens further back away from the eyepiece. And you do that by raising the eye cup generally up and down, and then remount the rings. Now on the phone scope rings in Kiera, I think you can tell me if I'm right, these are generally designed for use with the eye cup all the way up and then this seated firmly down, correct?
Yes, yeah, and that's the best thing, is just to get it on there tight so it's flush with it, and then like you were saying, just make those maneuvers to see how close or far it needs to be.
Right. Okay. So that's they have that in mind. But again, here's a graphic example. You can move that out, and generally the iPhones do want it up one or two. What I found experimenting with the Kowa eyepieces in the iPhones, you need to get them a little further away from the eyepiece to get rid of that shadowing effect. Okay, and there you can see it graphically.
Can I jump in real fast,
Yep,
Jeff?
of course.
One thing that I was super frustrated with was I like to view, so I'll put my phone scope on and I view it horizontal because I like to get pictures of that wider view. But it turns it, the weight of my phone pushes on the eye relief and switches it down.
Right.
And then I messed up again. So one way to battle that, which we get a lot of questions, we'll have people send their cases back because of this, is just get your eye relief where you want it. And then if you'll put your phone on so that it's vertical, then it will stay where you have it adjusted. The weight of the phone will hold the eye relief there.
And on the Kowa scopes in particular, you know, I'm right-handed, so I do want to have it hanging this way, but that's the way that they rotate down. If I go to the other side with it all the way up, it won't collapse, but it's not necessarily the most, what I want to say, user-friendly or intuitive was the word I'm looking for, way of doing that. I will admit I'm a hack. Again, going back to ease and speed, I actually self-motivate. I don't push it all the way down. I put it on about 1/4 of an inch so it stays, and I fire away so I can pull it off and on easier. Because when it's on there, it is quite tight, and you know, and then you leave the plastic ring on and twist it back on. So I tend to break all the rules and do things my own way, but it still works. So you know, that's the good news. We already talked about, okay, you can get your eye cup in the right position, use the zoom to eliminate any of that shadowed imaging. You can utilize the zoom a little bit more to get rid of that. We already talked about that, but we didn't talk about exposure compensation. So exposure compensation is similar. Remember how we got the autofocus and auto exposure locked by holding down the screen. Now the second part of that is if you lift your finger up and slide up and down on the screen outside of the box, at least, when you push up, it brightens your image. When you slide down, it darkens your image. Now, I know for a fact, having shot a lot of times, if I've got a darker bird silhouetted against a bright sky, I'm going to have to brighten that up. And I know it even before I shoot to get the bird properly focused and to fill the shadows underneath, even though the sky may go from blue to more of a white because you're overexposing your sky. Conversely, if I have something like an egret, a bright white bird, or a swan against dark reeds or dark water, I'm going to want to underexpose that so that it doesn't turn into Casper, the friendly ghost bird. So that's one of the tricks with auto exposure. And some of you asked about both autofocus problems and auto exposure problems. You had good questions before the webinar, and that's one of the biggies. So if you get your alignment issues squared away, and you know about how to adjust exposure and eliminate the vibration, right there, 90% of your problems in digiscoping, maybe more, have just disappeared, honestly. Let's see here. We already talked about getting your focus done. So here's another issue, and this one's harder to solve. This is one of the other ones that you just, sometimes you do everything right and you still can't get your picture to be completely in focus. And you have to remember that with this massive magnification, very often you're shooting at incredible distances, and the amount of atmosphere between you and your subject is immense, you know, and more so than other systems where, you know, you might have to be, again, 8 times closer to have the same focal length, right? So a lot of times bad air between you and your subject, you can't fix it. In this case, this bald eagle was on the ground. I was shooting out of my car and it was very hot, and, you know, we're getting heat shimmer. If you see the videos that go with this, you can see the heat shimmer, you know, vibrating up all around this bird. And it was, you know, affecting the light, you know, so that I really couldn't get a close image. There's only a couple things you can do in this instance. One is to just plain get closer to get less atmosphere between you and your subject, which is difficult at times. The other one in this case, because I was somewhat low shooting out of my car, shooting across ground that, you know, the closer you get to the ground, the more extreme the turbulence got in the air. If I'd been at a higher angle shooting down more, I would have gotten less of this effect. But that's one of the other things to consider. Bad air is something that sometimes you just can't really control too effectively. Okay, so this graphic over here said fun stuff. So we're going to talk about a couple things beyond photography that a phone scoping rig can do for you. And one of these things is if you're leading a group with a lot of people, in particular children, often have they have a real difficult time lining their eye up, you know, with the spotting scope to be able to see the bird. So one of the great things about phone scoping, in particular with these larger bright screen phones, is I can slap this on there, get it all zoomed up and pretty, locked in place, back away, and show a lot of people the same bird. Also, just as we're doing now, I'm sharing my screen to, you know, hundreds of you in like 17 countries that signed up right now. Through Zoom, there's a lot of different software that will allow you to do live screen share, you know, via Bluetooth, near field communications, or, you know, broad stream, you know, sort of across the internet or the interwebs. So you can literally share what you're seeing with people on their phone. So in the days of COVID, where you'd want to be not all gathered around, you could actually individually all see the same thing that I'm seeing live through my phone and share it. So it's another great way that you can utilize that. One of the good questions that people ask is, how can I see my screen, right? So there's two things to do. One, when you're looking at the screen, I'll go back one slide. You can actually go into your settings and increase your display brightness very simply. It's not only in the settings menu, but it's also found on the iPhones on the quick screen when you sweep up or down, depending on how old your model is, from the screen. It brings up the quick menu. Screen brightness is right on there, and it's just a slider that you can move up and down with your finger. Another thing that some people do, and again, I don't do this because I tend to not like a lot of stuff hanging around my neck other than the binoculars, but my friend Robert Wilson, who's not with us today, who is a great photographer and, you know, a professional photographer by trade originally, he carries around a loop like this that has a shade on it and a loop. So you put it over top of, it's designed really more for the back of a DSLR screen, as you can see here, but it works as effectively on your phone. It's just got this rubber, soft rubber shield around the outside that shades your screen, and it has a little magnifier up front, a loop that you can look at to see how well in focus everything is. Okay, more fun stuff to do with phone scoping. So how about being able to identify a bird that you see in the field easily through your binocular or spotting scope with your iPhone or your smartphone? It's very easy to do. So let's say you've got a bird in front of you, you don't know what it is, and you're not an experienced birder. So you got a couple of options. Probably the easiest way is to take a photo if you've already got it in the screen, first and foremost. But then you can utilize the Merlin software. And again, I apologize, some of this will be cut off, but open up the Merlin software. It's a free application from Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology. It's been around for years. Bird photographers have used it. They take a picture of their camera back and instantly identify their birds. But you start up the Merlin app, and you click on the Photo ID button over here to the right. Let's see what happens if I think if I make this smaller, no, that won't work. Then it pops up a screen and it will say to update your phone, to take a new picture, or to choose a photo. So you can either choose a photo you've already taken or open up the camera, access the camera through take a photo, depending. Both work the same and it comes up the same. When you click on either take a photo or choose a photo, it's going to bring up this screen on the left. And what you do is you just use your finger and thumb, you separate it to blow up and fill as much of that little square as you can with the bird. And then if it looks good, you'll click on the next button. It will ask you, is this the proper date and location? And then if you say yes, you hit identify. It goes to the third screen. And of course, you can't see the picture, but it says this is a great crested flycatcher, which it is indeed. Merlin's really good, and it's about 99% accurate and allows you to literally identify any bird. It's over 99% accurate, even on really bad photos, just using your phone through a binocular or any binocular or any spotting scope. Okay, so that's a really handy thing. It's the Merlin app from Cornell, and it's both on the iPhone and the Android platform. You use that a lot, don't you, Kiara?
Yeah, I actually I don't use the photo ID one as much because I'm still very new to birding.
Huh?
And so one thing actually you and Robert taught me when we were at the birding festival in San Diego was to pay attention to different elements of the bird,
Right.
you know, where they're walking. And so I love the feature in this app that lets me tell them what elements I've observed. So I have to pay attention to that. And then it gives me this same list. And then I go through and I'm like, oh, it's this one. And I can even, there's an option to listen to the call, and I use that a lot as well. So that's helped me retain that knowledge too.
It's a super powerful tool. And, you know, I love the fact that the photo ID aspect is what I've loved about it. More just simplifies that. But yes, like you say, there's more that you describe it and go through what I saw. And that's if you didn't get a picture, you can do that as easily and then get an identification in the end. So there was also questions on digi-binning. So we're going to finish up on that. And I'm going to let Kiara talk a little bit about the application. And then we're going to go to Q&A after that. So just a few more minutes here. But simply, you can see here on the photo on the left, here's my phone with the phone scope app. I've got the standard lens that it's centered on now. You can see the 2X lens just below that. I can switch the rings very easily. They're keyholed, as you can see. They just snap right in there and a quarter twist, and they're locked in place. So I can go back and forth from my spotting scope here to the binocular ring as easily and utilize that for phone scoping. Now I'm going to tell you straight up, phone scoping for me is rough. One, it doesn't have the advantages I spoke about before. At 8 or 10 power of magnification in a standard binocular, you know, you've got just an nth of the overall magnification of the spotting scope. So that's one problem. Say an 8 power binocular with a 28 millimeter lens, you've got something like a 250 millimeter lens, which is on the small side for wildlife photography. So you're going to have very small subjects. The other problem is, even when it's mounted onto the binocular and held in place, there is a lot of motion. So you're having to hold your binocular steady with one hand and focus it at the same time. And then the other hand is trying to manipulate the controls on the phone. It's pretty hokey. But doable. It's absolutely doable. And I do it all the time, get documentation shots. A bird will fly over, I can snap it. But I find I get a lot of motion blur with that. If you're going to try and do that, what I'd recommend is also use some sort of a tripod adapter and lock it down, or, you know, put it on a tree branch or brace yourself on however you can to make it as stable as possible, you know, with the digi-binning. But again, it's, you know, about 800%, 600%, 800% less magnification than you have with a spotting scope. So it's you have to take that into account. You know, the image quality and the size of the subject's going to be different on that. Here's a digi-bin shot again through the Highlander, but again, we have 32 millimeter or 32 power eyepieces on that, so it's a lot bigger. I think that's the end of my show. Kiera, if you want to go, I'm going to go dark, and what I'm going to actually do is move outside for Q&A, because there might be some things that we can demonstrate still live through the scope. But Kiera's going to talk a little bit about the app, in particular the phone scope app and what that allows you to do. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll go dark, and I'll talk to you shortly. Thanks.
Jeff. So there's a couple things that I failed to mention earlier that I wanted to touch on before we get to the app. And Jeff, just with the digibinning, reminded me of that. And you can kind of see, I'll show you my, so this is for my bins. This is for my scope. I am using the 553 Kowa scope. I like it because it's lightweight. I'm kind of a small person, so carrying around is super awesome. But it's a little bit bigger, you can kind of see. So with phone scope, every single one of our adapters, our eyepiece adapters we have it's a compression based fit, so it slides onto that eyepiece. And a lot of people will either start it out on the eyepiece, or they'll put it directly into their phone case and then put it on, which is, I know that's how Jeff does it. And like he says, he can kind of manipulate that and move that a little quicker. But if you know you've got a lot of time and stuff, you're going to be sitting in that shot for a minute. You can really get it on there, and you're going to get a lot less wiggle, a lot less motion blur. And then another thing really quick is we have adapters that are universal. And so if you have an older scope, an odd shaped scope, binoculars that are different, we have, if you go to our website phonescope.com, we've got a huge menu you can choose from, and we've measured them all, and we've made these adapters for the majority of optics in the world. But for those that we don't have, because it invariably happens, we've got these. So what it does is it twists down tight over the eyepiece. We've got these little rubber pieces. I don't know how well you can see them. My lighting keeps being funny. But they just hammer down. We've got a binocular sized one. We've got larger one for spotting scopes, as well as we have the option, if you want a custom one and we don't have it, we'll take the measurements. We'll work with you. We'll build you a custom one, because we know that custom fit is just better. And so because of the custom fit, and the customization of phone scope, we've developed a phone scope camera app. And like we talked about earlier, one of the big things is being able to tap into both of those lenses, whether you want that regular or you want that 2x zoom. And through our app, this is it. It'll be funny because I'm camera on camera, but even at the top here, we've got super quick, just switch right back and forth between those. And you can kind of see the difference a little bit. Also, we have the lock on it. So if you need to change your exposure, you need to change the focus, all of that is directly on screen. You can take videos with flash, without flash. We have timers. Everything you need for digiscoping is in this app, and it's specifically for digiscoping, which makes it nice so you don't have other things that are, getting in the way or being too cumbersome. But also, we've walked through what we want. We use our product faithfully, and so we want what we want. So we've been able to go in and work with those app developers and specifically line up exactly what we need for digiscoping. And it recognizes, hey, I'm used on a spotting scope right now, and it realizes how it needs to focus a little differently or interact with those lenses. So it's a huge asset. Right now, you can get it on the iOS, so Apple Store, as well as Google Play for your Android, and it covers all of that.
Hey.
That was perfect timing. We didn't even plan that.
Yeah, as necessary. Rob, Paul, if you guys want to come in and help out with any of the questions you may see, and you can fire them out, we can maybe round robin here, and we'll all discuss that together. I don't know if you have any. hearing birds out here.
Hey Jeff, we do,
Yep.
or Kiera, we do have a question from
Yes.
a phone scope customer, and Andy had asked when he ordered the C3 optic adapter for his iPhone case for his 11 Pro Max, did he get the proper adapter to take advantage both of the 1x and 2x lenses on the phone?
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. So like it looks a little different on your phone case. The iPhone 10s and 11s look different because their cameras are up and down, where mine is side to side. But there's the disc on the back of your phone is removable, and it will just slide out. And then when you can put it back in, and it will slide, yours will slide up and down to take advantage of the 1x or 2x zoom. And we have YouTube videos as well. I can I'll go find it and drop it in the chat so that you can go find that easy, that explain how to do that.
Yeah, and I see, so I'm looking at some of the questions, you know, Bruno's asking about the SmartBird ID, and I have to admit, I've never used SmartBird, so I can't compare how Merlin compares to SmartBird ID. You know, I've utilized the Merlin software quite a bit, and it's very, very successful. But I have to plead ignorance on the SmartBird ID. I'll look into that and see how that works as well. So I'm outside during migration. You might lose me. I'm like, oh, global migration day. I got to keep my list going, you know. What other questions are we seeing out there?
Now is the time to ask all your questions too.
Yeah, you can throw something up on Q&A. If you want, we can show some things, I think, easy enough. So I don't have my phone going live, so if you want to switch with me or whatever, you can shoot with that one, and if you want. But I'm here with Luis Glace. He's our professional guide from Colombia originally, now living in Miami. He's been quarantining over here with me, so we're basically living together for the last couple weeks. He's been hanging out with my family. So the good news is I have a qualified assistant right here as well. We can demonstrate some things in particular. I see some questions coming up.
A few more questions coming in, yeah.
Yep. Perfect. The focusing sequence between the camera and the scope again. All right, Jim, that's really good. So if you want to turn on your camera, and I'll demonstrate this, just film me doing this. We'll do this. So basically, in a nutshell, I found a subject. And when you're ready, please.
Yeah, I'm ready. Well, let me switch the camera. Ready. Cool.
Okay. Silence that. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start up my phone app. In this case, I'm on the 1X, so I'll just use the normal phone. So it's what most people have. I've already found a subject in here. I got it in focus. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to mount the camera behind. And can you see the screen at all? I don't know if it shows up. We've got some setups in the woods here. So we've got some of my film made a plover, and it's looking for focus. So I'm going to do that autofocus, auto lock. I can adjust focus here as necessary, but it's darker than I like, so I'm going to brighten that up, right? The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to utilize the zoom, and you can see I'm getting some shadowing on the left side here. I need my other hand here, so I can just straighten that up a little bit. And if I need to, bump that up a tiny bit to get rid of the rest of the. You can do this, get it level, refocus. There. Want to fill the frame. Take a shot. So that's the idea. Basically, I'll lock the focus on the phone, and I like to use, because especially with this course and the fine focus wheel on the spotting scope, the fine focus wheel really allows me to tweak the focus very effectively, even at high magnification. But again, from the back side here, and just show like how the tiniest little movement here. See how the screen's vibrating. Again, we're probably at a close to 2,000 millimeter lens equivalent. So, all right, let's see what else we've got.
Interesting question. Here's a popular question, Jeff. See what are your thoughts on this? Angled or straight spotting scope for phone scoping?
Yeah, no, there's really no right or wrong there. Okay, what you do there, it really depends on personal preference. As a birder, first and foremost, I prefer an angled scope, and the reason I prefer an angled scope, I can keep it lower, so there's less vibration. When you're going out in a group, if you're guiding or anything like that, having a straight scope, I'd have to have this up at the proper height for my height. If someone's this tall, they're out of luck, you know. So then what you do as a guide, if you have a straight scope, you have to lower this down all the way to the lowest common denominator. And there's no real way for the taller person ergonomically to get down below, you know, a lower set scope, especially if you're looking up at an angle like that. Trying to crawl below a straight scope is more difficult. So the angled scopes tend to be our most popular in the birding marketplace because it accommodates more people. When it's lower, it's very easy for a taller person to bow at the waist ergonomically, first and foremost, to look through the scope. Also, we can rotate the eyepiece down. Kowa is very popular in the sporting shooting range, and our spotting scopes were originally actually made for the Olympics. What year was that, Rob? 1960, whatever, the Japanese shooting teams, you know, competitive shooting teams. And for the shooters, they like that option as well, because they can be looking at a target with their rifle and look over to the eyepiece. So we've got different uses for that. And then if you're with children, you can actually rotate it all the way down and point it down as easily. I used to do that with my son before he got taller than me years ago when we were birding. I'd rotate the eyepiece down and he could look up into it as easy as I could look down. What else we got? Hopefully that's helpful. How do I keep the phone powered in a long session? Well, there's devices for that. Kira, you want to take that one? Because that's what I use. I use a phone scope power bank very often.
Yeah, phone scope has, again, excuse me, because we are using our own things. We do a lot of field trial and error. And so that was one thing. It's, yeah, you're sitting down for a long time, you're going to lose a lot of battery. So we have power banks that you can get. And we have different cords, charging cords that work with every kind of phone, that work with them. So I have a little phone scope kit that's got my power bank, my shutter button, my adapter. I have two adapters, one for my bins, one for my scope. You know, it can get a little much, but I just got a little backpack, just a little zip backpack that I just throw on and head out. So everything's always ready to go. But that's a good question.
Yeah, good one. Another one is, how do you tell the lenses on your phone with the multiple lenses? And I don't know if you can see that or not with the 3 lenses. Generally on the iPhones, the lower powered lens is on top and the 2x lens is on the bottom. In the case of the Pro Max with the 3rd, that's a super wide angle field of view for, it's not useful for digiscoping at all. It's more designed for landscapes to get, you know, a very wide, it's like half the power of the 1x. So we really don't worry about that one as much for phone scoping. However, if you're not certain, if you have a different phone, the way to do it is you put it on 1x or 2x phone, and you can cover it with your finger and see which one, you know, goes dark on you, just to make sure you know which is which. But when you get the proper adapters, you know, of course, the folks at Phone Scope, you can always call them for advice on that, because they've developed these for every phone, and they're a lot more knowledgeable with every phone than I am, obviously having only owned the ones that I own.
Got a question from Bruno, who is asking about the whether the Phone Scope adapter will work with the our 1.6 extender, and the answer is basically yes.
So absolutely, you know, the 1x extender doesn't change anything as far as the fit and format of our you know, it's still the same eyepiece on top of the 1X extender, which is, you know, what we're mounting to. So it'll still work fine for that. The problem becomes with the 1X extender is massive magnification becomes real critical. You're going to get a lot more shake, and you know, it's going to be very difficult. A lot less light, you know, as you increase magnification, the amount of light reaching the phone gets smaller, smaller, smaller. So, any other questions out there that we?
Yeah. Hey, Jeff.
Yep.
We have one actually in the chat portion of it that I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Dragon had asked, he's trying to use his digital zoom on his phone, and he's
Right.
just not happy with the results. It's very pixelated.
Yes.
And he wants to know, how do you recommend using the digital zoom, if at all?
Well, yeah, and that's a good question. You know, as with phones, every successive generation, or excuse me, as with point and shoot cameras, excuse me, every successive generation of phones is infinitely better than the last one. And so if you're using even something as old as, say, an iPhone 6 compared to the new iPhone 11s, it's day and night. And the digital zoom has gotten better as well as everything else. You know, your resolution's gone up and everything. So depending on which phone you have, it may not be useful to use the optical zoom at all, and just stay away from it completely if you're not able to get good results, and then just crop out later if you need to. You know, but that's going to be a trial and error with every system. You really do have to customize each system. And when we're offering these workshops, it doesn't help, still shaded. When we're working these workshops in the field, the very first day exercise that I always do is I go through and we flesh out everyone's system to find out what the weak points are. And then, you know, you have to have realistic expectations about how good can I get with the equipment I have available, you know, and sometimes you can only get to this level with the equipment you have, you know, and that again depends on the cost of your scope, the quality of the lenses in your scope, how new is your camera, and how effective is your adapter. All these things kind of stack up and work against you. Make sense? Hopefully that's answered. Well, I think
One or two questions coming in about
more?
soft rubber eyepieces.
Yeah.
This can be a problem, can't it, with phone scoping, with the soft.
Yeah. Okay. You're talking about the wiggle on the eyepiece?
No, the if you've got an older eyepiece with a soft rubber eye relief cap.
Right. It's not going to be as secure. Phone scope in particular tend to have, you know, I don't know if you can see these or not, the rings on them are much deeper and go further down onto the eyepiece than, say, the Kowa adapter, which is about half the width. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah. But at any rate, this tends to be a lot deeper cup, and it will get further down and get more meat, you know, on the eyepiece. So that's another advantage there over, say, these shallower rings. So, you know, where you might just be catching that top rubber. The other thing that actually Phone Scope has is they do have a twist lock ring that you can get. It's a sort of a universal ring, but it just makes it bigger and bulkier. But it does indeed, it locks in from all sides and will grab on. And something like that might be more effective as well in their kit. They've got a lot more options because that's all they do, you know, obviously, is create the perfect solutions as best they can. So that's why I like working with them.
Hey, Jeff, quick question here, as some people are starting to fan out during the Q&A portion. I just wanted to follow up with Phone Scope and see if they were offering any promotions or anything during this time.
Yes, thanks, Paul. Good call. For, I believe we said 72 hours. So what is that, Monday? We're going to do, if you use the code webinar10 on our website, it'll give you 10% off of your Phone Scope setup. So if you just go to phonescope.com and then go through the checkout process, and then we'll ask for a promotional code, webinar10. And it doesn't matter if it's caps or not. It'll just work. So
Good. That's great. So
Perfect.
we
Thanks,
should
Paul.
throw that out there. We've forgotten to mention that. I think with that, we've already gone over an hour, but I think it's hopefully everyone got most of your questions answered. Obviously, feel free, and you can hit us. My email is attached to the original registration page still. You can reach out with specific questions, and we'll get back to everybody if you didn't get your questions answered here today. But hopefully you all learned something, and hopefully you're ready to get out there and start having some fun right in your backyard with your kit, be it your binocular. I know everyone's got an iPhone, or a smartphone of some sort, a phone with a camera almost. So you can use whatever optics you've got with your phone, couple the two together, and start experimenting and having some fun and getting some images. You'll be surprised, I think, with what you're able to get.
One last thing, Jeff,
Yes.
too, before we take off. I want to just reiterate as well, for anybody with questions, and I'll put this in the chat as well, please email us at customerservice@kowa.com, and we'll be glad to answer anything. If you have questions for PhoneScope, please, you can reach out to them, and I'll have Kiera provide that address. But I did get some questions, Jeff, as far as what's coming up on the webinar schedule.
Okay, yeah, good question. So we already have one scheduled for next Saturday. We don't have the full bio developed yet. Probably by the end of the weekend I will. But for next weekend, we have Alvaro Jaramillo, one of our quality guides, a world-renowned author and bird guide, born in Chile, raised in Canada, and now living in Half Moon Bay in California. He's going to join us and be our guest speaker next Saturday, same time, discussing West Coast pelagics and pelagic birding, which are seabirds all the way from the Pacific Northwest down to the coast of Chile and to Galapagos even. So we're going to cover a lot of territory with him. He's extremely knowledgeable, written many, many books on a variety of topics, including the birds of Chile, the ultimate guide to all the blackbirds in North America, and the Helms Guide series, and other works that Alvaro's done. But yeah, look on our site, you'll see that soon. Also, another thing we're going to be doing is we have the biggest week in American birding was supposed to be going on right now, and of course, like everything's gotten canceled in America. And Ohio is the largest birding event in North America. We have hopped on, and we will be providing live webinar type addresses throughout the week there at 6 p.m. Eastern time. For those in the US, you can catch us there as well. And we're going to start off on Monday with an open forum on optics and optics questions that you may have. So look there as well on the biggest week in American birding website and on our social media pages for the topics as those develop. We just agreed to do that yesterday, so we're not quite fully there.
Yeah. And we'll put this full webinar on our YouTube channel as well Monday next week. So Kowa Sporting Optics. If you do a search in YouTube, you'll find all the webinars on that.
Right, and along with about 120 other informational videos on all of our various products that Rob Wilton, our magician with the pleasant accent that you just heard there from the UK, has put together, and they're great videos, high quality. We've got over 120, I think now, videos on a wide variety of topics on our YouTube page. So be aware of that and feel free to utilize that as well. And with that, I thank you all, and we're going to sign out. We've gone over, but the questions were good, the attention was good, and we had a lot of good
Hey, Jeff, real quick too. Kiera, can you please share an email address with the crowd, just if they have questions specifically for PhoneScope, who to reach out to?
Yeah, I just put it in the chat. It is support@phonescope.com, and PhoneScope is with a K, so SKOPE. So just support@phonescope.com, and we'll answer all your questions.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again, everybody, for taking the time. It is Global Migration Day, or the Global Big Day today. So get out and see some birds if you're a birder. For those on their shooters or long-range scanners that joined us, thank you again, and hope you have a great day as well. Everybody, stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.